talk about something that's probably impacting a whole lot of you right now, and that's what to do if you've been told you have to work at home because of the coronavirus. So it's happening all over. Everybody's being either sent home from school or work or classes, and if you're not used to it, working from home can be a little daunting. You might want to sit on the couch and do nothing, or you might want to sit at your computer from sun up to sundown. So it could go either way, but if you're at home and working and you've never done it before, it can be hard to figure out how to be productive when you're not in an office setting. But we've got somebody here that can help because he knows all the tools, all the technology, and he's pretty productive most of the time. So
try anyways. Well, and there's certainly the employee component to that, which is important. But for a lot of organizations, this is also your first time having to manage employees who are remote. So let's start with those people first, then we can talk about the employees and what you need to do to be productive at home, and be less distracted. That's a whole other can of worms.
I'll take notes during that part.
Okay, but if you're an employer and this is your first foray into remote work, there are a couple things that you want to make sure you've got in place. So first is, I was going to say something like Slack, but just get Slack. Slack is it's a communication tool that allows for you to let everyone in your office communicate in different channels that are segmented and have different levels of permission. So for instance, if I am working with an organization, I've got my marketing team has 3 people, and then my operations team has 2 people, and my production team has 10 people. I can have different channels for each of them and only let the marketing people in the marketing channel and the operations people in the operations channel, and so forth. What that does is it does a couple things. One, it allows everyone to be working collaboratively in one hub of communication. I think another really productive tool that I think you should be looking at is something like Uber Conference. Zoom and Ring Central are other things like this. They allow you to do video conferencing. I like Uber Conference because I think it is one, it's affordable. It's less expensive than Zoom and Ring Central, but it also works in the browser, which means if you have people, as many do, who are not super comfortable with technology, a lot of times they can click a button and have the browser load, and they don't have to download a package and install something and then click on another window to say, okay, let Zoom run, or whatever those things are. It's not as feature rich as Zoom is, but it's if you're just getting started with remote work, it's a great way to do virtual communication with people. Another tool that I think is really, really helpful for managing remote work is a task management tool like Asana. I like Asana a lot. We used to use it a lot before we built our own internal system. Asana allows you to assign work and track work in really atomic ways, so that you can get insight into individual tasks and individual projects. It really it interacts really well with Slack, and they just keep releasing new features like Gantt charts, automated workflows, and other things to try and make it more productive. It was founded by one of the guys who founded Facebook. It's a very, very good piece of software, and I think probably one of the best tools for remote work that's out there.
So if you're a company that doesn't already have a time tracking system in place because you're all in the office and you can see from 8 to 5, the butts are in the seats, how can you make sure and track the time, make sure your employees are doing what you need them to be doing when they're at home?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different tools for that. So on the one hand, I think I really like different time tracking apps like Harvest, which if you are doing invoiceable work, it allows you, and it also integrates with Asana, it allows you to track work scope to particular projects, and you can turn that into billable hours and invoices pretty easily. So another app that I really like a lot for time tracking is Toggle. It's really easy to use. It's got a Chrome extension that allows you to click a button and start tracking your time as well. So having employees use something like Toggle is really great. That said, there are also other tools like WorkPulse that allow you to monitor what people are doing on their computer. So are they actually like in Word or in Google Docs doing work, or are they on Facebook, presuming they're not a social media manager, for instance. So employee monitoring software like that is, it can be a really helpful way to know whether you're getting the work you're paying for from the people you're working from. Now that can seem a little draconian if it's not part of your work culture. I imagine that you would get some pushback.
Little big brotherish to me, but
but there's something to be said for making sure you know what you're getting in return for your time and your money. And so if you're not already used to working remotely and you're still using old office software, get your team on Google Apps as quickly as possible, and start using the cloud for collaboration as well. I don't know, are there other things you can think of that would be like that you've used to try and work remotely and be productive?
The Google stuff, I think. A lot of my clients use Google, and then they use Google Hangouts for conferencing. So Slack is super helpful.
I always found Google Hangouts to be kind of hit or miss. I felt like a lot of cases and maybe it's gotten better, but I stopped using it for a while and started using paid services because I found that with Google Hangouts, it would hang and not hang out.
Yeah, there's been some freezing moments here and there, but I really like Trello, and it's really good whether you're working on your own or within a team. It's great for collaboration. I'm very visual, and it lets you make lists and it lines them up and kind of almost like you're using Post-its, but not all over your computer screen or your desk. So that's one that I really like. But what about for those of us who get distracted once in a while, or for those who are used to being in the office setting and staying productive in an office setting? What are some tools or techniques we can use to stay focused and productive at home?
So there are a lot of things you can do.
You don't have to write the book on it. Just tell us a few tools that will help.
Well, I would say the first thing is actually an anti-tool. Turn off your notifications. It's so easy to get distracted when you're getting, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, CNN, ESPN, whatever those things are. And the problem is that our brains are wired so that what's focal gets attention. And we really can, despite the fact that many of us think we can multitask, it's been shown time and time again that it's just neurologically not possible. And what feels like multitasking is really, it's called task switching. And what happens is in the process of task switching, your brain almost has to do like a restart. Like imagine like a quick restart of your computer every time it needs to do a new task. It would hang tremendously. And over time, that's what happens. And partially why it can be hard to focus for a lot of people is when you're constantly in reaction mode and getting the dopamine hit from the next notification. Over time, you actually do wear out your brain's ability to focus. It's not meant to be that stimulated that often. And so I'd say the first tool is an anti-tool, is turn off those notifications. I think another thing that is maybe less of a tool, but more of a habit or a practice rather, is to make sure you've got a dedicated space where you can actually like sit upright. So for people that maybe struggle with this, one thing I would suggest is getting an app like Pomodoro. And you can read about what's called the Pomodoro method. The high level idea behind this is that you work for 25-minute breaks or 25-minute stretches. Then you give yourself like a 3 to 5 minute break, and then you do it again. And during that 25 minutes, you're focused on one task, whether it's writing that document, whether it's designing that website, whatever that thing is. For that period of time, that's the only thing that gets your focus. Training my attention through the Pomodoro Technique was a really, really huge part of it. And knowing that every 25 minutes I was going to get a break, but what I would look back is after the first half day, I would have gotten way more work done than I would have thought.
And pro tip, anything with Pomodoro on it is probably going to make you pay if you want to download like timers and stuff. But if you Google like the tomato timer, It's like an off-brand of the Pomodoro technique, and it works the same way. It sets a little timer that lets you work in those little chunks of time, and sometimes you can change the chunks of time, but anything with the tomato timer brand is usually going to be free to use, and you won't have to pay for the Pomodoro. But it's worth looking into if focus is something you struggle with, and that technique, and probably paying for whatever you need to pay for.
Or just use your phone's timer.
True.
And I think that's you can just tell your AI of choice to give you a 25-minute timer, and fair warning, the first couple times you do it, 25 minutes seems like forever because you're not used to having your attention focused for that long. But over time, it becomes the 25 minutes will start to fly by, and you'll get way more work done than you thought.
And maybe if you get so much work done when you're home in quarantine, that your boss will just say, you know what, work from home from here on out. So maybe we just did you a favor. So.
Hey, why not? Most of us go to a physical location to do digital work, so that's kind of silly if you think about it.
Well, we hope those techniques were helpful, and we hope you guys are all staying safe and healthy.